It's a beautiful night for baseball. And live from Busch Stadium in St. Louis, a couple of arch rivals, the Dodgers and the Cardinals, get ready for the first of this three-game series. Hi again, everybody. Charlie Steiner, Oral Hershiser, and Nomar Garciaparra. This is a rivalry that dates back to 1892, 123 seasons. From the Bridegrooms to the Superbas, the Trolley Dodgers, the Robins, the Dodgers, Brooklyn and L.A., regular season, postseason. As the Post-Dispatch pointed out this morning, one game separates these two teams over 123 years. And coming into play tonight, Oral, these are the two best teams in the National League. Western Division leading Dodgers, Central Division leading Cardinals, and yet there will be no Kershaw, there will be no Greinke in this series this weekend.
Yeah, the big two is now all there is. There used to be a big three, but the three behind those two are going to pitch in this crucial series, and that's going to be Mike Bolsinger, Carlos Frias, and Brett Anderson. Brett Anderson was somebody who's supposed to be in the rotation, has pitched very well. Frias has been a great find, and Bolsinger has been the most surprising, coming off 8 innings of one-hit ball in his last start, and the key has been his curveball. To finish hitters off, to get back into counts when he falls behind 1-0 or 2-0. The Cardinals are going to see a lot of number 2 out there from number 46, and they are a disciplined team, Charlie.
And Nomar, here are the Dodgers. Up until the 12th of May, they were averaging more than 5 runs a game. Since the 13th of May, they're averaging less than 3 runs a game. What gives?
Well, I'll tell you, in those first 32 games, they scored 4 or fewer runs 13 times. In the last 14, it's happened 11 times. And for me, we can see the numbers at the top, but the ones at the bottom really stand out. The average of runners in scoring position, that 244 average, where they rank 20th in the NL. I mean, the Dodgers are still giving themselves opportunities. They still rank 1 in the NL with on-base percentage, but when those opportunities come, they need to capitalize on them. Guys like Howie Kendrick, guys like Justin Turner, and we know they still have the long ball. Andre Ethier supplying a home run in recent games, but for them, capitalize on those opportunities.
So this historic rivalry that dates back to President Harrison. Dodgers and the Cardinals getting ready for the first of the 3-game series. Lineups, first pitch coming up next. Challenger. With an EPA estimated 30 highway mpg, this car was made for driving in California. Visit Dodge.com today. 75 degrees, overcast skies, humidity is thick, and there's a pretty good chance we're going to see some rain before the night is over as the Dodgers and Cardinals get ready for the first of this 3-game series. The Dodgers at 28-18, 10 over 500, a half a game in front of San Francisco. The Cardinals have the best record in baseball at 31-16. They're 18-5 here at Busch Stadium. Peterson and Rollins and Kendrick, top 3 for the Dodgers. Adrian Gonzalez at the moment the leading vote getter for the All-Star game at first base. Justin Turner at third. Andre Ethier in right. Alex Guerrero in left. A.J. Ellis behind the plate. Mike Bolsinger pitching and batting ninth. Last time, of course, the Dodgers were here in St. Louis. Only A.J. Ellis and Adrian Gonzalez in that lineup were in the lineup the last time we were here.
And they're going to face John Lackey, who features a fastball that hovers around 91 miles an hour, a good slider, a curveball, and an occasional change. And he's a type of pitcher that likes to get you to chase, a swing and miss type pitcher. But I think early on in the count, look for your pitch. Don't go after his pitch right away. Look for your pitch. Force him to show that he has command and have him force you to go after his pitch later in the count.
Closed captioning tonight is brought to you by Chumash Casino Resort, where we are all about you. And we are getting ready to play. So here's John Lackey making his 10th start of the year. A record of 2-3, a 3.18 ERA. Jock Peterson leads it off. Peterson at 263 with 12 home runs, and he takes a strike. It's 0-1. Peterson, Rollins, and Kendrick to bat. Peterson leading all rookies with a dozen home runs, besides just merely center fielders. And a swing and a miss. Quickly, Lackey ahead, 0-2.
Jock Peterson, that 263 average is on the climb. He's coming back from like around the 230 mark, a 3-game hitting streak right now. 7 for 13 on that streak.
Third in the league in walks, third in the league in strikeouts. 1 ball and 2 strikes. So we expect some rain here and there tonight. We had some earlier in the day. The field was covered. There was no batting practice today. The 1-2.
Really interesting thinking about the Dodger lineup tonight with 2 rookies in the outfield, and Andre Ethier that at the beginning of the season or in the offseason might not have been on the team. And here we sit, second best record in the National League, playing the team with the best record in the National League.
And rivals that date back to 1892.
And how many games separate them?
1.
That's amazing.
2 great rivals. Mike Matheny, what a job he has done in St. Louis. Cardinals have won 1,026. The Dodgers 1,025. A win tonight sets up an epic rubber game tomorrow.
Mike Matheny in his 4th year with the Cardinals. All 3 of his first years make the playoffs every year.
They are without Matt Holliday tonight. He's got the flu. Peterson, did he hold up? Nope. Third base umpire Mike Milchinski punches out Peterson. As we mentioned, no Matt Holliday in left, so it's Randall Greicha. Peter Borges, the one-time Angel in center. Jason Hayward is in right. Carpenter, Peralta, Wong, and now Mark Reynolds at first base. You may have heard that Matt Adams, who did in the Dodgers and Kershaw last year, he's gone for 4 months, had surgery today on a torn quad muscle, and maybe the best catcher of them all, Yadier Molina behind the plate. Jimmy Rollins on the first pitch, and an underhanded toss from Reynolds to Lackey, quickly 2 out. John Lackey now 36, and here's Howie Kendrick. Howie steps in at 291. Of course, all of his hits came in interleague play, and 9 years with the Angels. 4 home runs, 18 runs batted in for Kendrick. There's a strike. What's the difference between John Lackey these days, Oral, and John Lackey, who came up with the Angels.
I think what Nomar described as far as being a chase pitcher, he was somebody that could really live in the strike zone in his early days because he threw much harder and the curveball and the changeup were much sharper. Now it's more about walking the hitter off the plate, like that pitch right there.
And he's been doing that early on already, Oral. I mean, we've seen that in the first 2 batters. He's, you know, the success he has is when he's actually able to command those pitches, command those corners, and feel like he can pound them.
On 1-2.
And when age started to creep up on John, not only age was creeping up on him, but also health. And so he lost 2 things. He lost velocity and he lost accuracy. Well, now that he's gotten healthier, he still has the loss of velocity, but he's been able to now locate the ball a lot better. And when you can do that, the loss of velocity doesn't hurt you as much.
6'6" and 235, John Lackey. His 13th big league season.
There's one of those well-located breaking balls. He not only threw it wide, he spiked it out front. He wasn't going to make a mistake, that's for sure.
Lackey came up with the Angels in 2002. His career record 152 and 117.
That's when K-Rod was setting up for Percival, I think.
On 3-2 to Kendrick. Headed to right field for a hit. So a 2-out single for Howie Kendrick, and it brings up Adrian Gonzalez.
Well, Howie does a good job. You know, obviously those breaking balls that he threw were out of the strike zone, but he's trying to come back with a 2-seam fastball in the outer half, almost kind of backdoor that fastball, and Howie stays with it and goes the other way.
Adrian Gonzalez, the second leading hitter in the National League at 341, third in the league with 56 base hits, and the National League leader with 17 doubles. Little wonder then he's the leading National League vote getter at first base for the All-Star game, but he lines it right into the glove of Matt Carpenter, and that's that. So Kendrick with a 2-out single, the sum total of the Dodger offense in the first. Mike Bolsinger to face Colton Wong, Matt Carpenter, and Johnny Peralta when we come back to the bottom of the first. Mike Matheny. Colton Wong having an all-star kind of year, leading it off at second base. 9th leading hitter in the league. Matt Carpenter, another sensational season. Johnny Peralta at short. Randall Grichuk starting in left. Matt Holliday down with the flu. Reynolds at first. Yadier Molina behind the plate. Jason Hayward in right. Peter Borges in center. And John Lackey pitching and batting 9th against 27-year-old right-hander Mike Bolsinger.
Mike Bolsinger, drafted back in 2010 in the 15th round, more of a suspect than a prospect, but right now he is an integral part of this Dodger rotation, coming off an 8-inning one-hit performance, throws almost 50% curveballs. And when he throws his fastball, he tries to make it go in two different directions, of course, the two-seamer and a little cutter.
So here's Colton Wong taking high and away, 1 ball and no strikes. Bolsinger doesn't like the Cardinals at all. Really doesn't like them. He grew up just outside Chicago, a little town called Gurney near Waukegan, as a Cub fan. Well, Colton Wong didn't take long to pound a base hit into right field, and he's trying to go to second base. Here's the throw, and he will make it. 2 pitches into the game, the Cardinals are in business.
Well, he gets a ball up in the zone. He turns on it, stays on top of it. I don't know if he was thinking 2 right out of the box, even though Andre bobbled it just a little bit, but he was thinking double, and that little extra bobble even reassured it in his mind that he can go for 2, and he slides in there safely.
Remember a couple of years ago in the World Series, he's picked off. He was completely downcast, and Wong has really turned his career into a top-notch second baseman. Could well be ticketed to Cincinnati for the All-Star game as Matt Carpenter steps in. Carpenter at .314 with 53 base hits. And like this Cardinal team, everybody is a tough out and a clutch hitter. Dodgers found out from Carpenter the hard way last year. 1 ball and no strikes. Johnny Peralta on deck. The Cardinals have 4 of the top 16 hitters in the National League in their lineup, with the exception tonight, of course, of Matt Holliday out with the flu. Johnny Peralta at .305 is one of them. And he's on deck. Krejcik, sitting .308 after him, doesn't have enough at-bats to qualify. Into left field for a base hit. Wong will be held. And the Cardinals immediately in business, first and third, and nobody out.
And Mike Bolsinger really has not established the breaking ball at all. The fastballs have gotten hit. Both of it have been slightly up. That one to Matt Carpenter slightly up and in the middle of the plate. Alex Guerrero does a nice job in left field, charging the ball and getting it in quickly to hold Wong to third base. But Bolsinger's last outing, the first batter reached, of course, and then they only faced the minimum because he erased him with a double play. But here in this next outing, first and third, no out.
Peralta on the year is hitting .305, but against right-handed pitching, he's at .324. Bolsinger already in trouble.
Or early in the game, you get first and third, nobody out. As a pitcher, are you really worried about the man at third? Or are you thinking, okay, just try to get a double play, get out of this inning with a minimal amount of damage?
You're so right, Nomar. Even when he was on second with no out, I'm thinking, I don't care if you move him over. I'll give up this run in the first inning. And now for sure, you're only worried about the guy in first. If you get a chance in this situation, for me, in an 0-2 count or a 1-2 count, you go for the strikeout to try and save the runner at third. But until you or the batter gets the count to there, you just try and get the guy out. Give up the run, sac fly, give up the run, ground ball out. You have to start eliminating the damage already.
Peralta 7 home runs, takes up and in.
You know, Charlie, you mentioned that Mike Bolsinger grew up a Cub fan and not liking the Cardinals. That's a little extra adrenaline in itself, just to come and pitch against your childhood rival.
And Bolsinger, what a pleasant surprise to this point. This is his 5th start. Has an ERA of .71. And at this point, he'll be happy to get that first out under his belt.
He's been able to use the curveball to get back into the count here. And this is where, in his last outing, he was able to then walk hitters off the edges of the plate. Not just be able to throw it for a strike, but actually be able to place it to get key outs.
Up high.
A little extra adrenaline right there. When you see the curveball slipping out the top half, or you see it high and not breaking, a lot of times you're trying to throw one that's better than your good one, and you have a tendency to hang them.
Bolsinger coming off the biggest start of his young major league career last Saturday at Dodger Stadium. They're going to fly ball to left field and deep and foul, and Bolsinger could take one big exhale. Last Saturday, he pitched in front of the largest crowd of his life, a sold-out audience at Dodger Stadium. 53,479. Gave up 1 hit in 8 innings. And he's a couple of feet away from being down 3-0 in his next start. Three and two. Let's see if Carpenter goes again. He does, and the bases are loaded. A.J. Ellis going out to calm his nerves.
It's a shock to your system when you come off such a great outing where hardly anybody got on, and all of a sudden you have bases loaded, no out in the first outing of your next game. You don't really have the calluses from working out of jams or traffic. All of a sudden you're kind of shocked to your system. This is the first time in almost 10 days that he's faced a jam.
And is it different for you as a pitcher, where that last game where you basically were out of the stretch just one time, get it open, and then the whole game you're out of the windup, and now here you're finding yourself more in that stretch?
That's where you have to remember to take some warm-up pitches in between every inning from the stretch, even though you haven't been in it.
A strike to Randall Grichuk in the cleanup spot tonight. Matt Holliday sick to his stomach.
Well, the good thing for Bolsinger, the next two guys are pretty big swing and miss guys, a chance to get out of the inning.
Missing just outside and low.
Yeah, swing and miss guys, but if you miss,
they can hit it a long way.
Yeah, they hit it.
They could hit 1,000 feet of home runs in 2 swings.
So Bolsinger trying to get out of this early jam. Gets ahead of Grichuk. It's 1-2.
Now, the pattern of the curveball so far this inning has not been good. It's been slipping and staying right there in the middle, high. Only seen him throw one real good one to Johnny Peralta, where he took enough off of it and really got it out front where it bit the way it was biting in the last outing.
1-2 to Grichuk. Just inside.
It's a dangerous pitch for a pitcher. You're in that 1-2 count. You want to get to the curveball away, but you want to set it up with a fastball in, but you don't want to go too far in and hit somebody with bases loaded.
2-2. Reynolds on deck. Kendrick, Rollins, Gonzalez. Dodgers more than happy to trade the 2 outs for the run, but the Cardinals take a 1-0 lead.
They get a run but no RBI, and that's a great double play for Bolsinger.
Well, Howie did an excellent job. Good feed over there to Jimmy Rollins. I mean, we talked about, I asked you all about what you're thinking as a pitcher. Infielders think along with you, thinking, okay, get that ground ball, and when you finally get it, we say, we need to turn the double play for you to try to minimize the damage as best we can for the pitcher.
And now here's Mark Reynolds taking over at first base, at least in the short term, for Matt Adams. Adams had surgery on the quad today, and they say 4 months. Basically what they're saying is if the Cardinals get into the postseason, then maybe. 0-2 to Reynolds.
Bolsinger gets out of this with 1 run. That is damage control at its best. Something that Carlos Frias, who pitches tomorrow, is going to need to learn as a younger pitcher, where he had a rough outing, giving up 10 runs in 4 innings and really couldn't find a way to control the damage.
To shortstop. Damage control as Reynolds bounces out, and that's it. Cardinals at first and third, nobody out, could manage but 1 run, and Bolsinger is happy for that. We'll go to the second. Second batter's aboard. Runners at the corners. Nobody out. Peralta would walk, but Grichuk would bounce into the double play, and Reynolds would bounce out. So comes out of the first inning a run and a couple of base hits. And leading it off for the Dodgers against Lackey here in the second will be Justin Turner. It'll be Turner, Ethier, and Guerrero against John Lackey. Lackey gave up a 2-out single to Kendrick in the first inning. Turner has done well against right-handed pitching and takes a strike. It's 0-1. So John Lackey now has faced 5 batters, and each of the first 5 has been behind in the count. One ball, one strike.
As you get older, Lackey at 36, you really start to value that first pitch strike, because you cannot live behind in the count, because you cannot live in the middle of the strike zone. You just don't have the stuff anymore to live in the middle. So the way to be able to work on the edges is to get ahead.
So you want to be a catcher. Yasmani Grandal will return to the Dodgers tomorrow. And there's a line drive base hit into center field, and Turner continues his hitting prowess against right-handed pitching. Grandal back tomorrow with the Dodgers after his 7-day disabled list visit with the concussion.
Justin's got that perfect tempo to have that kind of placement base hit swing.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm so amazed at Justin Turner with that high leg kick. Just over the past couple years watching him, the timing that he's had with it and the balance he's had with it as well. It's not only just getting the timing, the foot down with the pitches, but also making sure your body doesn't drift forward and get out of balance.
Now Andre Ethier, what a season he has had. And a fly ball into short center field. That's Peter Borges. And that's the first out of the second.
I'll tell you this at bat, I'm interested in Alex Guerrero, because we know how locked in he's been. But what I haven't seen is really too many teams try to move his feet so much. And with a veteran guy on the hill and also a veteran catcher, I wondered if they might be looking to really try to pound him in or maybe move his feet just a little bit.
That doesn't sound like that would be fair.
I know you'd be thinking it.
I'd do it a lot.
Yeah.
Outside and low.
It's a tool you have to use as a pitcher. When the hitters start turning that outside corner into the middle of the plate and look really comfortable, you've got to pitch in.
So Guerrero and Jock Peterson, rookie home run leaders in the National League.
Breaking ball on the outside corner, or was it? Pitch track says it barely caught. I guess with my eyes, that was barely.
That's a ball.
Okay, that's a ball. 1-1.
That's what it says. Guerrero on Wednesday night cracked his 9th home run of the year. He's had a home run in 3 of his last 4 games. Second only to Jock Peterson in home runs for Major League rookies. What's also been fascinating about Guerrero and his home run total, 5 of his 9 have come in the 7th inning or beyond. On the road, 5 home runs and 10 runs batted in. One and 2 with Ellis on deck.
You know, and you talk about the 5 home runs after the 7th inning, the 3 off the bench, and then you talk about pressure. But when you're talking about guys who have come from Cuba and pressure, it's just a little different than they've ever, you know, how you can describe pressure when they've described some of the things that have happened in their lives.
It is small potatoes.
Yeah.
Hitting in the 7th inning compared to what they've gone through.
7th inning on in the big leagues compared to growing up in Cuba is a little different.
Living your life in the bottom of the 9th every day.
Yeah.
Guerrero down on strikes. Second strikeout for Lackey.
And you know what? Nothing has really gotten to his head. You know, all the success. What a great young man.
Now A.J. Ellis. 7 hits, 5 singles, 2 doubles, a couple of RBIs. Did well last year against the Cardinals and takes outside and low, 1 ball and no strikes. As we mentioned, we expect to see Yasmani Grandal back with the Dodgers tomorrow. His 7-day visit to the concussion DL is at an end. There he is. So the Dodgers will make a roster move tomorrow.
I love the length of that DL. The medical staff and Major League Baseball and the Players Association got together and figured out how long that is, that they didn't have to do the normal length of the DL, that the players get back in action sooner when it's safe.
Too much time.
And I think what it allows them to do is to really react and not be afraid to put them on the DL, because you know as well as I know they're going, well, do we DL them, do we not? There's 15 days. Is it going to be a 15-day out? So this one, it just gives them time to just automatically make that decision.
And there was a lot of pressure on the player, on the trainers, and on the medical staff from management usually on, you know, because managers all want their players to play.
Well, literally and figuratively, it gave a guy like Grandal time to clear his head.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike Matheny's career came to an end because of post-concussion syndrome. It's dangerous business. It used to be you got your bell rung. Now they take it a whole lot more seriously, and rightfully so. Two and two to Ellis with Bolsinger on deck.
And AJ knows Yasmani's going, and he's had some regular playing time here in the last week, and he sure would like to have a big night before he probably steps aside for Yasmani. Got a nice hit in RBI the other night that everybody was happy about.
Grandal last night 2 for 4, a double and a couple of walks in his last dress rehearsal. Call strike 3. Ellis is done. So are the Dodgers. 3 strikeouts for Lackey. No runs and 1 base hit. Meanwhile, Yadier Molina, Jason Hayward, and Peter Borges will hit for the Cardinals in the second against Mike Bolsinger. Cardinals have a leg up. Presented by New Balance. Taking the field, among others, Mario Lopez, Rob Riggle, Landon Donovan, and many more. For tickets, go to Dodgers.com/HollywoodStars. Well, to end the Top half of the second inning, A.J. Ellis was called out on strikes by home plate Mike Winters, and he didn't like it much.
Yeah, and it's an interesting call and then an interesting argument after, because A.J. Ellis knows he's going to need that pitch with Mike Bolsinger on the mound. So right when A.J. goes to have the conversation with Mike, he's got a lot of thoughts and a lot of reasons to choose his words carefully. And I'm sure part of the sentence was, I'm going to need that pitch if it's a strike for them.
Sir. Yadier Molina takes high, 1 ball, no strikes. Mike Winters calling balls and strikes tonight. Winters in his 27th big league season. He's from Oceanside. Yadier Molina. If there is a better all-around catcher in the game, not quite sure who it is.
I think you got the right one there, Charlie.
Breaking ball for a strike.
And he has developed his game like the great defender Ozzie Smith developed his game when he was a Cardinal, because Ozzie wasn't a great offensive player when he first came up, but Ozzie got stronger and took more interest in his offense. And Yadier was the same way. Unbelievable defender who really started to work really hard on his swing and his offense, and has become one of the bigger offensive threats and clutch hitters in the game.
19 runs batted in, and he bangs a base hit into right field to lead off the second.
Just the approach right there, Nomar, shows you that he's a thinking man facing a guy like Bolsinger.
Well, it's really easy to just, as a catcher, they don't expect much of you as on the offensive side. But as you said, he's developed into a better hitter. And that right there, when you always hear he doesn't do too much, you see on the side swing how he stays down on that. That front shoulder stays in. He's leading off. He's not thinking, okay, I got to drive it out of the ballpark, or I'm really trying to drive it in the gap, and you end up flying open, getting really big. He just takes what the pitcher gave him and goes the other way.
Jason Hayward, the former Brave, bounces one to Kendrick. The spin, the throw, they'll only get the one. So Hayward takes the place of Molina at first. Bounce too high, and Hayward too quick. That brings up Peter Borges, the one-time Angel, at 272. John Jay, who's spent time on the disabled list, activated today. So Borges starting in center tonight, and way out in front, it's 0-1. John Lackey is on deck. So the Cardinals at 31-16 with a 5.5 game lead on the Cubs. 18-5 at home. And for the Dodgers, the first of a 7-game road trip. 3 here, 4 in Colorado next Tuesday, a day-night doubleheader, making up for the rain/snow out a couple of weeks back up in Denver. The Dodgers right now in the beginning of a very long stretch. 34 games in 34 days. And so when Don Mattingly makes moves, it's not only for a specific game or a specific inning. It's looking out essentially over the next month. How that one move may impact on another and then another. 1-2 to Borges, 1 home run, 6 runs batted in.
Another guy at the plate that you really going to have a tough time doubling up. So there's speed at the plate and speed at first base.
On 1-2.
I always wanted my infielders, Nomar, to play a little deeper when I had a guy at the plate that you're probably not going to hit into a double play. And if the guy ends up hitting that chopper, that he gets a hit on it, well, the ball's still in front of you at least. And I'd rather have that than a base hit ground ball where everybody's pinched in at double play depth.
And usually you'll see that from a veteran infielder. They're thinking the same thing. They'll take a step or two back, just knowing. And you tell each other, hey, make sure of one. Make sure of one. You know, if it was just one guy who was, say, speedy at first, you're going, okay, give it to me early so I don't get taken out. But with both guys, just get the lead guy.
It's going to be a tough play. Foul ball. Foul ball. The call is made by the home plate umpire prior to the ball reaching either first base or third base, and so Mike Winters raised his hand. You could hear him all the way up here say foul ball, foul ball.
This ball going right down the line. Charlie, you're right. This ball's in front of, and you don't see a call there from the third base umpire at all, but you will see a call from Mike Winters at home plate. Justin Turner, great job with his baseball clock, realizing no matter when he fields that ball, Borges is going to be safe. So I better give it a chance to go foul. Grabs it late as he could. Got the foul call.
A ball and 2 strikes. Hayward leads from first, and Bolsinger steps off the rubber. So the Cardinals have 2 players from the Angels that they got in the deal that sent David Freese to Anaheim. Borges and Grichuk. 2-2.
Mike is yet to lock in yet and throw those back-to-back quality breaking balls. He's been able to throw one sporadically, but not really been able to throw a few in a row.
Just missing outside.
Well, that might revisit the conversation that AJ had with Mike Winters.
AJ is going, I guarantee that crossed the path where I was called on. That's what he's thinking to himself, saying, I really wanted that pitch.
See, on pitch tracks, that one's about a ball and a half wider than the one against AJ.
Let's see if Hayward goes. Nope. Borges is prone to strike out a fair amount. He's fanned 19 times and 81 at bats.
Well, the 2 reasons you go is you go to, if the ball's hitting the gap, then you got a better chance to score. But the other reason to go is to stay out of the double play. And since Borges runs so well, you don't have to start the runner at first.
Good thing for the Cardinals, they didn't. Good thing for the Dodgers. The punch out for Borges, and that's the first for Bolsinger.
That's not the big slow curveball as much as that's the harder one that breaks sharp late.
And the other reason they didn't send Hayward, strike him out, throw him out, Lackey would lead off the next inning, which is something you generally don't want a pitcher to do with a career batting average of under 100. Lackey on this year is 1 for 13. He struck out 8 of those 13 times.
Yeah, I tell you, they bring in the pitcher, and usually your your outfielders were coming a little bit, but look how far Jock Peterson is really shaded the opposite way. You got a big hole over there from center to left center.
Guerrero racing on back. Guerrero's quite shallow, and so by the time he tracks it down, it's just a couple of feet in front of the warning track. No runs, 1 hit, 1 left. When we come back for the third, Bolsinger will lead it off. In the top of the order for the Dodgers, Peterson and Rollins. iconic St. Louis arch. And here we are at Busch Stadium. The first of this 3-game series. Mike Bolsinger will lead it off for the Dodgers, and Jock Peterson and Jimmy Rollins. Game time temperature 75. Humidity to match. And this time of year, there's always a chance of a passing shower or a thunderstorm, which we had earlier today. Bolsinger, 10 at-bats, 4 strikeouts. Lackey's first pitch is inside. It's been quite a journey for Mike Bolsinger. The Dodgers cuffed him around last year when he was a pitcher for the Diamondbacks. Then they purchased his contract in the offseason, figured he'd be a seat filler in AAA. Well, lo and behold, he gets a chance to pitch up here and entered the game with an ERA of .71.
He moved from an emergency guy to a staple. The Dodgers hope the trend continues. You don't expect a guy who was 1-6 with a 5.5 to all of a sudden step up and have a .71.
Down a run in the top of the third. Lackey's got to be kicking himself. Working the count full to the opposing pitcher who doesn't have a hit yet. 5 wasted pitches to begin the third. And there'll be a 6th. Jock Peterson on deck and Jimmy Rollins to follow. Lackey eventually wins the battle. Of course, we've been talking about what a historic rivalry this is, the Dodgers and Cardinals. And President Harrison, for goodness sakes, was the president of the United States when this rivalry first began. Alana?
Yeah, it's amazing really how balanced it is, considering there's just one win that separates these two as far as the record is concerned. Of course, very storied franchises, guys. You know that. 17 World Series titles between the two franchises. St. Louis with 5 more than Los Angeles. 1 more pennant for the Cards, and the Dodgers do, however, have the advantage in Cooperstown. 15 Hall of Famers. But it's really incredible the amount of times these two teams have met. 1 win separates.
Yeah, and each of the last 2 years was not a happy ending for the Dodgers in St. Louis. Matt Adams, the big blast. Kershaw getting cuffed around the previous year. This is the 2052nd game between these two teams.
Justin Turner's our red dream, but the Cardinals are the red nightmare.
The red menace.
Yeah.
Ooh. Peterson, a strikeout victim in his first at-bat. Down 1-2. Plays off a fastball upstairs.
The series with the Cardinals has grown into the same significance almost as the Giants. There's so much written and talked about and speculated that the Dodgers need to put those series behind them so they don't have to answer so many questions. They need to start winning some of them. It's easy fodder when one team dominates.
Everybody, I think in today's, they're always talking about, well, they're your rival. Is this a new rival? You hear about there's different teams. You want to create them. But a lot of that creation is when 2 teams that are good are going at it, not to meet maybe in postseason or later in the season to get somewhere.
So Jock Peterson works out the walk, his 32nd of the year. Lackey thought he had strike 3, and he's barking at home plate umpire Mike Winters.
Yeah, I think that's what he was. He was more worried about the call than he was worried about whether it was a check swing or not.
Yeah.
Now here's the check. There's Jock holding up.
Yadier Molina and John Lackey thinks they got 4 strikes on him.
Yeah.
And they looks like they did.
Yeah.
How about the pitch? Where is that?
I'm not too worried about asking the third base umpire.
Sometimes you know the umpire got it wrong when you gripe that much and you're still in the game.
Jimmy Rollins takes inside.
That's when you know they got it wrong, when they'll take the heat.
Rollins looking down at Lorenzo Bundy for a sign. Might a hit and run be in our immediate future. Peterson 2 stolen bases this year. Had 30 at AAA last year. He was a 30-30 man in the PCL. First time they had one in more than a half a century.
You're talking hit and run, Charlie, and that was a tool that Tommy Lasorda would use all the time for guys that were struggling. And Jimmy Rollins is out of his slump, but definitely a tool that can be used.
Not going anywhere is Peterson.
Or I was watching, Lackey obviously upset with that call that was missed on Jock Peterson. And as a pitcher, I know you want to gripe, but if you had a veteran catcher like Yadier Molina, would it be less? Would you almost kind of let your catcher do it, understanding how good he is and knowing that he's controlled back there and can talk to your umpire?
Yeah, you can do that. And Yadier did a great job, I think, if I recall it correctly. Yadier got between the two of them, and really did a good job keeping Lackey in the game.
Slowly hit to second. Wong's got only one play. That'll get Peterson to second base. He's the first runner in scoring position for the Dodgers tonight. Rollins is 0 for 2, bouncing to second. Now Howie Kendrick, who singled to right in his first at bat. Cardinals with a 1-0 lead, a bases loaded double play, driving in the Redbirds' only run. That came in the first off Bolsinger, as Kendrick swings and misses. Howie's been solid all year, runners in scoring position. Lackey taking forever outside. "75 degrees. Chance of showers. There always is this time of year around here. Here's the 1-1. 1-2 to Howie Kendrick. Kendrick, 371 this year with runners in scoring position. A solidifying presence on the field and in the clubhouse, the veteran Howie Kendrick. On 1-2, Peterson leading from second. Works the count to 2-2.
Well, we talked about in the open how important these opportunities, that you had to try to capitalize on it, because we mentioned how the Dodgers the last 2 weeks have struggled compared to the first 32 games as far as scoring runs, and it's really with that average of runners in scoring position.
2 balls, 2 strikes, and 2 out. Three and 2.
John Lackey always been known as a feisty competitor out there. He does not hide his emotions. He will air himself out there on the mound, right in the middle of 50,000.
Or anybody else that gets in his way.
Exactly.
To shortstop, Johnny Peralta on the second hop. That'll do it for the Dodgers. We go to the bottom half of the third. Lackey is still upset with Mike Winters. last couple of years during the regular season, the Dodgers have done just fine against the Cardinals. It's the postseason where they've taken a beating. Dodgers, especially here in St. Louis in the postseason, had a terrible time of it. Last year in the division series, lost 3 out of 4. In the NLCS in 2013, lost 4 of 6. Colton Wong leading it off, began the game with a double and would score the only run of the game. One easy hop to Bolsinger. And that's the first out of the third.
You know, Charlie, those cold hard facts, really the beginning of the paradigm shift of the front office with Andrew Friedman to get this Dodger club to play playoff baseball, the one-run baseball, the late inning come from behind wins, the bullpen that can shut you down from the 7th inning on.
Those grind them out at bats late in games.
And the Cardinals have been very proficient at that over the years. So have the San Francisco Giants.
Now Matt Carpenter.
There's an athleticism to baseball, and there's also an art. And I think that this Dodger team is learning to play the game in a more artistic manner.
And a toughness.
And I think the bench, the way it's constructed, the bullpen, the way it's constructed, more about matchups and interchangeable pieces.
Which really speaks to the trade of Juan Uribe this week. Uribe had essentially lost his job to a combination of Justin Turner and Alex Guerrero. They get a guy in Callaspo, who's the hardest man in baseball to strike out, who can play a little bit of third base. And by the looks and sounds of it, those three fellas are kind of occupying time and space and place at third base until Hector Olivera shows up, which could be in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And so at the end of the day, as great as Uribe was for the Dodgers, and that's Kendrick making the play, 2 out, his role was no longer needed in how this team is evolving.
It became a very stagnant part of the roster, and as a piece that could only do a few things. You're right. I think the other thing that the front office has really shown is a very large trust in the coaching staff. In a coaching staff that if we give them guys that have certain tools, that the coaching staff might be able to help the areas where they don't do as well. Where Callaspo, I think maybe you think about him being a better hitter than because of Mark McGwire and John Valentin. You think about what Rick Honeycutt has done with a guy like Mike Bolsinger, or with like guys that are pitched in the bullpen, the young guys. They are more apt to like a big arm and a good spin rate on breaking balls and saying, you know what, I trust our coaching staff to be able to fix these guys.
Johnny Peralta with 2 out and nobody on, falls behind 0-2.
And it really seems to be functioning at a very high level. Between the pieces that are given to Rick Honeycutt and Mark McGwire and Don Mattingly and the coaching staff then integrating them.
And in the case of Callaspo, he can play every position save pitcher or catcher. So he can be used in many different roles. Made the last out the other night at Dodger Stadium. But it was a long at bat. And there is Peralta with a base hit into the corner. And he will get to second base standing up with 2 out. We were talking earlier about grind him out at bats. A guy like Callaspo, he's not going to win the Silver Slugger Award, but at the end of the day, he's the kind of guy who can grind out an at bat late in the game.
Speaking of grinding out an at bat, this is what Peralta right here on this one. You get a ball down and away like that, and he's just kind of making contact. And how about that effort over there by Ethier getting that ball?
Ethier made contact with the sidewall.
He did. Hope he's all right there.
I just wish they would put the padding all the way down to the bottom. You see behind Andre how the padding stops about 6-8 inches from the ground, and that's where the outfielders need it most. I mean, yeah, up by your head in the wall when you go crashing into it, but down there where your knees are when you're sliding. I think they do it for drainage and to not have to replace the bottom level of padding as often as they do, because that's the area that gets wet. But I know the guys in the Players Association will say, well, you can put that into the budget and we'll pay for it.
Well hit to left. Guerrero came in, and then it goes over his head. A bad route. A run scores, and the Cardinals lead 2-0.
There's two guys kicking themselves on this play. Alex Guerrero a little bit, Mike Bolsinger leaving to break the ball up again. As the pitcher, you're not going to hold your outfielder accountable because you made the first mistake, but Alex's route was a little off.
Yeah, he started in, didn't get the read really good off the bat, and then it was just sailed over his head. It's a little bit different if his read or his first step was almost back and at an angle to his right. He might have had a better chance of possibly making that play.
So the Cardinals with a 2-0 lead, a 2-out rally, and Mark Reynolds is the hitter.
And most outfield instructors will instruct to either freeze or take that half a step back because the ball over your head costs you a lot more bases than the one in front of you.
1-1 to Mark Reynolds. Dodgers, of course, have seen a lot of Reynolds over the years, primarily when he was in Arizona.
We talked about taking advantage of opportunities prior to the game, and this is a perfect example that the Cardinals, you get the guy a double with 2 outs, and they still figured out a way to knock in and get a run with 2 outs.
Into right center. Here's Ethier. And that's that. But the 2-out double for Peralta. Grichuk knocks him home. The Cardinals lead 2-0 as we go to the 4th with Gonzalez, Turner, and Ethier coming up. Of the first 40,000 fans in attendance and receive a Kenley Jansen bobblehead presented by State Farm. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotions. So the Dodgers are down 2. Adrian Gonzalez will bat first here in the 4th. Gonzalez lined to Matt Carpenter in his first at bat. We have not seen the Cardinals employ a shift, although they are playing Gonzalez as a pull hitter in the infield and straight away in the outfield. Gonzalez, Turner, and Ethier to bat in the 4th. 2-0 Cardinals. They've out hit the Dodgers 5-2 as Gonzalez fouls it off to the left. It's 1-1. Gonzalez is 3rd in the National League with 56 hits. First with 17 doubles, 2nd in average.
I think it's really odd that he doesn't get more pub. But I think is it because he's so smooth at everything he does?
No, because he makes things look so easy. Is what you're thinking?
Like a Tony Gwynn, you know. It's just
there's nothing flamboyant about Adrian Gonzalez.
No.
He's efficient, down on strikes, and for Lackey, his 5th strikeout of the game. All he does is play 155 games every year.
It wasn't surprising the other day when he got his 1,001 RBI. But what was surprising is it just seems like it has just happened, you know.
Only 12 active players in the major leagues have 4 figures in runs batted in. Justin Turner grounds it foul. Perennial all-star is Gonzalez, 4-time Gold Glove winner. Plays every day.
Led the major leagues in RBIs last year.
116.
You see him on the cover of any magazines? No, but the other guy on our team got the MVP.
Meanwhile, Turner behind 0-2. He singled to center in his first at-bat. The Dodgers are down 2-0 with 1 out in the 4th. A defensive swing, and Turner stays alive. It's fascinating because what a great year Turner had last year for the Dodgers. Took over when Uribe got hurt. Ended up hitting .340. Was great in the clutch. A terrific pinch hitter. And now he's taken over as the quasi everyday third baseman for the Dodgers at the moment as he grounds it foul.
I think that alludes to what Nomar said in his last at bat, how he has the high leg kick and a few moving parts that would maybe lead him to be a little bit more of a hot-cold guy.
And that's why I'm still impressed that he's been able to maintain this for so long. And, you know, that was one thing that I'm sure they even talk about. One is from his health, about playing every single day. And even Don Mattingly alluded that to that. You know, I'd like to maybe give him a few, you know, play 3 games in a row, give him a day, maybe 2, give him a day.
As he grounds to Carpenter.
But I also think it helps as well from him, from his mechanics standpoint. Because of all of that movement, where some guys who play every single day and have a lot of movement, not to say you can't be successful that way, and not that people haven't figured it out and really understand your mechanics, but there more things can possibly go wrong. And if
you like the strength and being rested, because then you can have those kind of mechanics.
And plus, he's also proven that. I mean, that's the other thing. If you look about his success that he's proven, because it's not easy to just come off the bench and be successful, or put that pinch hit situation, or do a spot start here and there for a day or two and be lights out the way Justin Turner has. And that, it's easier said than done, and he's done it so professionally so far throughout his career. And so you don't want to lose that edge that you have with him as well.
Meanwhile, Ethier, who flied to center in his first at-bat, takes a strike, and it's 1-1.
You see guys that have that leg kick that have been real successful, but they don't use it in every swing like he does. I remember Manny Ramirez had a huge leg kick, but he was like when he was guessing a certain pitch.
He had it when he knew, or he was ahead in the count.
Into left. Krichik makes the play, and that's that. Dodgers go in order. 5 straight retired by Lackey. We'll go to the bottom of the 4th. Cardinals 2-0. You by Nissan. Get to Nissan's ride of your life for exciting performance and surprising offers. Shop ChooseNissan.com. And by DraftKings. Play daily fantasy baseball for free on DraftKings.com. Use promo code BLUECREW for free entry. Charlie Steiner, Oral Hershiser, Nomar Garcia-Parra, Alana Rizzo, coming to you from St. Louis. The first of a 3-game series with the Cardinals. Yadi or Molina leading it off against Mike Bolsinger. And Yadi, who singled to right in his first at-bat, takes up and in, 1 ball and no strikes. His older brother Benji is in town, selling a book about the Molina brothers. Jose Molina is here. Benji is somewhere in the neighborhood. 2 balls and 1 strike.
Probably asking his brothers to help promote the book. Bring them all around. Yadi, I know you had an off day yesterday. You probably out promote the book.
You're not doing anything.
On 1 hop to short. That was a tough, nasty hop that Rollins made look easy. 1 out and nobody on. Mike Bolsinger, one of the things we have learned about him in his time with the Dodgers, he is a carefree spirit. He's a left-hander in a right-hander's body, Alana.
Well, he certainly is very loose, specifically on the day that he pitches. Of course, baseball players, guys, as you know, are creatures of habit, and certainly pitchers are no different. But he is one of the most loose guys I've seen as far as on the day he pitches. He was in and out of the dugout all day today, chatting with people. In fact, during our pregame show, he came up to me and I said, hey, come over here. And he had an actual impromptu interview with me 30 minutes before the game even started. And that was after he went over and talked to his friends, hugged a couple fans, and just had a good time. He even came over earlier today and showed me a picture of him as a child. Somehow his leg was stuck in the toilet. Loose guy.
And arriving at second base is Hayward after the scorcher off the glove of Rollins.
Well, this was a rocket off of Hayward's bat, and if Rollins comes up with it, it's just a tremendous play by Rollins. Unfortunately, he can't, and it gets off his glove. And Hayward hustling out to get that double. You know, that's one of the ones that, you know, as an infielder, you know, Rollins is blaming himself, thinking, okay, it hit my glove, I should have had that, and you're frustrated. But you're also frustrated that it did tip off your glove and that it just nicked off and created that double, as compared to possibly just getting by you and maybe your outfielder keeps it to a single.
So here's Peter Borges, who foul tips it. Just a follow-up on what Alana was talking about with Mike Bolsinger, talking to him last week in San Francisco. He said, and he raised the question that we always raise: how come there's no such thing as a crafty right-hander? And that's what he says he is. He's not going to overpower anybody with a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. He gets by on his breaking stuff and mixing speeds and locations.
Well, it's funny that, you know, Alana was talking about how loose he is, and everybody, I think, deals with the anxiety of the game or the stress differently. Yep. Some are just rock solid, don't talk to me, I'm coming in, leave me alone, to some that the other extreme is, hey, just I'd rather you talk to me, keep me loose, maybe I'm not thinking as much.
Kendrick gets a speedy Borges by a step. Hayward goes to third. I remember 15 years ago, Oral, when you were pitching with the Mets. You were starting on I think a Saturday afternoon. We were doing a game at ESPN, maybe a Sunday, whatever it was. And we're chatting, and said, "Oh, you got him?" And I said, "Sure."
Yeah, for the national guys, because I know you're only in for a day. No, not because of circulation, but because I know you're only in for the day and you have no time to prepare, I would break my own rule. But with the local guys, they're there with us every day.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so those guys, they knew the rule, and I'd wanted to be left alone. But for the national guys, I always thought it was part of our contract as far as the Players Association, and why we get such great salaries is to cooperate with the media.
Here, here.
And so that's why I thought it was important to do. But I would bet we did it kind of slightly off in a corner by ourselves, because I would not want to rub it in the face of the local guys like, oh, I'm talking to Charlie or I'm talking to somebody else, and they're not getting it.
2 balls, no strikes to Lackey, 2-0. Redbirds in the bottom of the 4th. And into short right field, Ethier is there, and that's going to do it. So the 1-out double, no damage. We'll go to the 5th, bottom 3rd of the order for the Dodgers. Guerrero, Ellis, and Bolsinger will be coming up. Had 1 runner reach as far as second base so far tonight. Bolsinger's done well. He's given up 2 runs and 6 hits. A shaky first inning. He's pretty well settled down since. Hard to compare it to his last outing last Saturday when he gave up that leadoff hit, then a double play, and then retired everybody into the 9th inning. Faced 24 batters in 8 innings, did Bolsinger. Tonight he, through 4 innings, has faced 18 of them. Alex Guerrero, strikeout victim in his first at-bat. A.J. Ellis, likewise, on deck, and then Bolsinger to bat against John Lackey. Mother Nature's forgotten to tell Lackey he's 36. And on the first pitch of the 5th inning, Guerrero bounces to Carpenter.
You know, we saw that shot of Mike Bolsinger really chatting it up with Rick Honeycutt and Don Mattingly kind of overseeing it and listening. It is so much more fun to coach a guy who likes to talk than it is the guy who has that real solemn game face and like leave me alone, has blinders on, because you're so many things you want to kind of impart, and you want to have the right time to talk to somebody, and you have to pick your time to communicate with the other guys.
And you don't want to walk on eggshells.
Bolsinger's like, let's talk.
I'm open over here. Come over here. Somebody join me. Sit down. Let's.
The number one thing that he has commented on about the Dodger organization since coming over is it's unbelievable communication. Well, it's like, who don't you communicate with?
Yeah. I'm remembering back about a year ago when Beckett pitched the no-hitter in Philadelphia. He was talking to everybody.
Right.
He was talking to the cops. He was talking to the bat boy. It didn't matter.
Yep.
And when Kershaw had his no working, okay.
Yeah. Complete opposite.
Keeps it.
You know,
there's no right way, no wrong way.
Everybody's different.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Everybody's different the way they are focused and keep their concentration.
But I was just watching that conversation thinking, my 3.5 years as a pitching coach for the Texas Rangers, I don't know if I've had anybody that wanted to talk that much.
Well, Bolsinger?
Kenny Rogers talked, and he was a lot of fun. He was, not nearing the end of his career, but he was definitely a veteran, and he'd come in and we'd chat about, what are you thinking now? And I'm thinking, too many first pitch fastballs are going to start sitting on it. Let's go here. Okay, what do you think about the breaking ball? Yeah, it's really sharp. I think you can stay with it. And it was, it was fun because you can almost pitch vicariously through them.
2-2 to A.J. Ellis with 1 out in the 5th.
Something that I hate about a lot of Little League coaches. Let the kids learn and play.
Oh, the opposite.
Yeah, the opposite.
The opposite.
Once they get to the big leagues, the instruction is.
Yeah, now it's fun to talk.
Yeah.
Call strike 3, strikeout number 6 for A.J. Ellis. Or actually for John Lackey. Ellis the victim for the second time.
2 backwards Ks for A.J. in the scorebook, and he'll go back to the video on both of them and see that they were strikes. But it is,
and they were both
not any less frustrating.
Yeah, but they were pitchers' pitches. I mean, Lackey has painted that outside down corner on him twice.
Bolsinger, and Hayward makes the play. 8 pitches for John Lackey in cruise control at the halfway point of the ballgame. Brought to you by your Southern California Toyota dealers. Save big on any 2015 Camry now at the Toyota Time Sales event. A note to keep in the back of your mind as we go to the bottom of the 5th. The game is now official. Why do we bring that up? There is some bad weather. They tell us we're about a half hour, 45 minutes away. Dodgers are used to some of that. So we'll see. In the meantime, Bolsinger, who struggled in the first inning, but got out of it giving up but 1 run and gave up a run in the 3rd inning on back-to-back doubles after 2 out, nobody on, has pitched reasonably well. Nowhere near the way he pitched last Saturday, when he pitched to the minimum 24 hitters in his 8 innings of work. Wong a double and 2 at-bats. Remember a couple of years ago, Wong got picked off the World Series and how downcast he was. And that, I defer to you guys who excelled on the big stage for so long. Such a young guy could have been so badly deflated into center field. Peterson is there, that he was able to come back the next year and regain his sea legs, and now he is playing like what the Cardinals thought he'd play like when they first drafted him.
Yeah, and they actually, I mean, it's interesting because he got called up late that year, and then he finds himself in the World Series, like you mentioned. But at the same time, sometimes it's a little bit easier for a younger guy because, you know, they're still trying to climb that hill to be first of all, a big leaguer, and then prove that not only to themselves but to everybody else that they belong there as well, as compared to those that have made it and have an unbelievable reputation, are almost at the top of the hill, and then you expect them to succeed. And then, I mean, almost in contrast, I look at him and you have Clayton Kershaw on the other side, where what we expect and what he's had against this very ball club. So for Colton, I mean, yeah, it is easy for you to be down, but at the same time, I think it's also a little bit easier to shrug it off because you're still trying to prove yourself, and he's done a tremendous job going out there and playing his game and being the player they thought he was going to be.
All-star caliber second baseman Matt Carpenter. 2 balls and a strike.
You know, I noticed too, I was covering that playoff series for another network.
ESPN.
Yes. And the Cardinals are known for really being grinded out professionals, but they're also known for family. And there was a great support system there for him.
That's exactly right.
You know, he was not alone. The veterans would kind of hang out when he had to do the interviews around in the scrum. The PR people were always there close by. Mike Matheny made sure that he reached out and touched him really often. And they do a great job of understanding the whole person.
Cardinals haven't been this good for this long by accident. Now Johnny Peralta, 1 out, 1 on in the 5th. Peralta's walked, doubled, and scored a run.
Mike Bolsinger's outing could seem rocky, but only giving up 2 runs. Yeah, he's walked a couple. Yeah, he's given up 6 hits. And it isn't his last outing, but you don't expect to be that good every time out. You go out there 5 times, let's say. 1 time it's just flowing out of your body like it's unbelievable how natural it comes, and you have a great outing. The other 2 outings of the 5, you're making adjustments all the time, and sometimes 2 out of the 5, it's just a flat-out battle. I'd say this outing for him right here is one of those ones where he's not his best, but he's not his worst, and he's out there grinding and making adjustments all the time.
There's another thing that occurs to me watching Bolsinger, and that is A.J. Ellis. That hurt. In the case of Bolsinger, in his last start in front of 55,000 or whatever the number was at Dodger Stadium, it was the biggest crowd he ever performed in front of. Pitched the best game he had ever pitched. Retired 24 batters. Gave up a leadoff hit, double play first inning. That was that. So his best game in front of the biggest crowd he's ever pitched in front of. Now his next start, here he is in front of a sold-out house in St. Louis. Dodgers begin the night with but a half-a-game lead on the Giants. So this is not just another start against another team in another town. This is a big deal. And so far, he's held up his end of the bargain.
Yep.
Well, he's kept the Dodgers in the ball game, and right now, you know, John Lackey's pitching well on the other side, and the Dodgers haven't figured him out.
Strike 3, throw to second base. It's not going to be in time. Carpenter with his first stolen base of the year. There's 2 out.
They got a walking lead over there. Mike Bolsinger came set, probably got into a rhythm of come set and go, come set and go, and Carpenter got a nice half a step jump. Really never got set.
So that was interesting how he had a kind of almost stopped there for a second.
He didn't hear a swing. He didn't hear the ball. He's like, oh, that's ball 4. No, it was a curveball for a strike.
Right.
So now there's 2 out. And the Cardinals, always tough with runners in scoring position. Grichuk to short right. Ethier in and over and makes the catch, and that ends the inning. No runs, no hits, a walk and a man left. We go to the 6th. Top of the order for the Dodgers coming up. Peterson, Rollins, and Kendrick. 2-0 Cardinals. trail by 2, and time to take a look at the Dodger calendar presented by 76. Tomorrow's game on Fox and, of course, the Dodger Radio Network. Back with you on Sunday when Brett Anderson faces Carlos Martinez, and then on to Colorado. And remember, it's a day-night doubleheader on Tuesday, so pack a lunch, fellas. Here's Jock Peterson, a walk and a strikeout. He's among the league leaders in both of those categories. He swings and misses, nothing in 1. 32 walks, 55 strikeouts. Ranks 3rd in the league in both of those categories, and he's been among the league leaders in on-base percentage at .392 at the moment. Leading off the 6th. And Lackey's just cruising right along.
Yeah, this is a big inning for the Dodgers here. Now you're getting the lineup to go through to face John Lackey for the 3rd time here. See if they're able to make an adjustment. You're getting late in the game here. I know you're just down by 2, but this is a big inning to just try to get something on the board.
There's no weakness to this Cardinal pitching staff. #1 starters ERA, #1 in bullpen ERA.
Right. So when you get into that bullpen and you in those late innings, now you're really figuring if you don't want to be down by 2. It's a little bit different if you can put 1 and you say, okay, we're down by 1. We can grind 1 out of there and really make this a close game. But Lackey right now is not giving in at all. Still has the command and another strikeout.
Peterson down on strikes for the 2nd time today. Jimmy Rollins coming up, and here's Alana.
Well, guys, as we know, Jimmy Rollins a switch hitter. I asked him how he became a switch hitter, and basically when he was growing up, about 9 years old, he was playing a game of strikeout with one of his friends, basically a neighbor, and they couldn't strike him out from the right side, so he switched over to the left side. His friend did the exact same thing from the opposite side, so they could actually have a game of strikeout. He said he'd been working on it ever since. Then he said, I'm a switch hitter. That's all it's going to be. He said, now I can't even go back the other way. And I asked him how it is having to obviously hit from both sides of the plate. And he said you definitely have to think about it. It's definitely a mental thing depending upon which side you're on.
Rollins grew up in Oakland. And, of course, had his great years in Philadelphia. I asked Jimmy, how is it that he was able to survive in Philly? Outside. 2-1, and Nomar, you survived in Boston, and Philadelphia's a tough place to play. Boston's a tough place to play. New York's a tough place to play. Some can and some can't. I said, what was it that took you to a point where you were so beloved in Philadelphia for so long? And he said, I felt like I was an employee of the fans. I worked for them. I did as hard as I could, played as hard as I possibly could, and it was with that respect that he had for the paying customer that the folks in Philly, where of course famously they would boo Santa Claus, they loved Jimmy Rollins from beginning to end. And a line drive into right field for a base hit.
Along that, Charlie, I would tell people who would come into Boston, a new teammate, a young one who would come up, and even to this day when I tell people that, look, you want to have the fans on your side. It's actually decided from home plate to first base. Running hard. When people say you play the game right a lot, and you hear that a lot about players, it's usually how you bust it down the line getting to first base. Play hard every day. Run out of the box every day, and they will love you for the effort you're putting out there. And that's what Jimmy Rollins does. And that's how you're beloved by those fans in those tough places, because they respect that. They respect the guy who's coming and giving the game its all and respecting the game.
Now Howie Kendrick takes outside and low, 1 ball and no strikes.
From a pitcher's mound, it's about throwing strikes.
Just do your job. Let's go.
Oh,
but you're right.
When Charlie's talking about surviving in those towns, I thought he was talking about like water, food, and shelter. It's like, what's the big deal?
Well, you were the guys who played in front of 50,000 people.
I'll tell you what, you were describing Mike Bolsinger's last 2 starts with the largest crowd he ever pitched in front of at Dodger Stadium, and then this one sold out here tonight. For me, Charlie, the more people, the better. The louder, the better. Mm-hmm. It just had a way of locking me in and focusing me. That a game in Pittsburgh when they were struggling to draw people with 5,000 people, I hated that game.
Was that the way your first 2, 3, 4 big league starts?
Just, yeah, I liked that big moment, that big time, that adrenaline rush of the nerves. I love that nervous, almost chaos of, I've got to have everything in control because this is big.
I thought it was just fun. I mean,
yeah.
That was my it was just fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's what you dreamed about.
Yeah.
I mean, as a little kid, when you're all by yourself and you're throwing the ball against the wall or you're throwing it up and hitting it, you don't imagine 5,000 people, boring big league game, 2 out, nobody on. Okay, I'll do this. No, you think bottom of the ninth, World Series, 50,000 people going crazy. All right, you need to throw a curveball. And you throw it against the wall and you go, oh, well, I'll give it another try.
On 1 and 2. A tailor-made double play. 6, 4, and 3. So the Dodgers go quietly here in the top of the 6th. Mark Reynolds, Yadier Molina, and Jason Hayward coming up for the Redbirds, who lead by 2. The 6th, and a reminder on June the 9th at 7:10, the Dodgers and D-backs and be one of the first 40,000 fans in attendance and receive a Jock Peterson t-shirt presented by Edmunds.com. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotions. Mark Reynolds will lead it off for the Cardinals here in the 6th. So Reynolds, at least the first baseman de jour for the time being. Matt Adams, surgery on the quad today, and Reynolds bangs a base hit into left field to begin the 6th inning. Reynolds now 1 for 3. And for the Cardinals, their 7th base hit.
Well, the Cardinals have had somebody on in every inning so far in this game.
Get all the hits you want as long as I limit the damage. That's got to be Mike Bolsinger's mantra tonight.
He has to this point. Cardinals had the bases loaded, nobody out in the first as J.P. Howell begins to warm. Grichuk would bounce into a double play. Reynolds would bounce out, so the damage was limited to 1 run in the first, and in the third, after 2 out, nobody on, back-to-back doubles for Peralta and Grichuk. And there's your 2-0 lead. Molina has singled to right and bounced to short and takes a strike. It's 1-1. Rockies beat the Phillies tonight. Marlins beat the Mets. It's going to look like the Mets are returning to earth. The Marlins are just trying to get some air.
That Rockies game, Chad Bettis lost a no-hitter in the 8th inning. And you'll be really upset, Charlie, and I know Nomar is, when you find out what kind of hit it was. A weak ground ball to the opposite side of a shift. Oh my gosh.
Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. 2-1.
You love the shift, don't you, Earl? You love pitching in there. Like,
I'm going to take the 5th.
And the 4th and the 6th. Molina 287 with a ground ball to third. With the runner going, there won't be a double play.
that was a good job by Justin Turner. They say throwing your hands at that ball. That was one where as he was moving, it looked like it was going to catch him in between pops. But he throws his hand, throws his glove. Watch his glove hand out here, right here. Oh, that's in between. Gets it out there in front and scoops it in front of him. It was worthy of a nice Carl's Cam replay there and gets the out.
So you don't let the ball play you, not only with your feet, but with your hands.
When as you're moving your feet and you're getting into position, you are watching.
Every little leaguer's taught to charge the ball, which he did. But then you see, as you're charging it and as you're looking at your timing to get to the ball, that I'm going to be caught in between. So it can either wait for that in between and handcuff you back into your body, or if you stick your glove out and you take it away, like he did there, which is an easier play.
Now Jason Hayward hitting just .242. Takes a strike. It's 0-1. Remember years ago, Hayward was hit in the face by a pitch ball, and thus he's got the flap on his helmet, not unlike what Giancarlo Stanton uses on his hard hat with the Marlins.
Would that have bothered you, Nomar?
I don't know. I'm just very lucky that I didn't have to go through what they had to go through to get hit in the face to warrant something like that, or to feel confident or whatever. I didn't have to go through that, so I'm glad I didn't.
Looks like it definitely makes you put two eyes on the ball as far as turning your head.
Well, I'll tell you, it's one of the, obviously there's a little bit difference. Giancarlo has one, and he has more like of a wire one. It's not as solid as this piece that he has, so they're a little bit different. So, obviously with technology and different things that they can make, where it's really not blocking your vision as much, but I'm sure it takes some getting used to. But at the same time, if it makes you get that confidence back to step into the box after getting hit, by all means wear it.
2-2 to Hayward. It's bounced out and doubled.
Right when this ball goes over his head, look where his hand goes.
It's a security blanket as much as anything else, and that's not meant in any disparaging way whatsoever.
Not at all. Just a subconscious reaction, possibly.
Inside, 3-2. Stanton's face mask is not unlike a football face mask. This one, on the other hand, is a full wraparound. Again, whatever works.
Yep.
For Bolsinger, his 92nd pitch of the game. He's walked 2, struck out 2, given up 2 runs and 7 hits.
I had 2 balls thrown at my head. Nolan Ryan and Dwight Gooden.
Oh, that'll get your attention.
Both in bunting situations where me getting the runner over late in the game was key. And the very first pitch, both at bats, I squared around early, both right at me. And it, just to go back in there and bunt, which I did, you are blocking out a lot. You are, and it's almost like you're just grinding your teeth. Let's go. I had to get angry to get back in there. As well as you hit, Nomar, you had to been knocked down a lot.
I would get down, and it's so funny that you say that.
They'd have to knock you down on the first pitch. It wouldn't be like 0-2. Okay, now I'll knock you down.
Either that or on deck circle.
Sometimes I just swung at those too that they were trying to knock me down, put them in play.
Like how do you knock down the guy? How do you set up the guy who swings at the first pitch? You got to knock him down on the first pitch.
Well, you know, I've had some come up there, and I've actually got hit the brim of my helmet, but. You know, I took the same mentality. It's so funny you say that. You got angry. I actually would get closer to the plate after that.
It's like, come on.
Like, yep, okay, if that's what's going to happen, let's go.
Here's Peter Borges with 2 on.
You have that mentality, at least for me, it was a mentality of I'll take 5 punches to hit you once. It's like, I know this could hurt, but let's go.
And I just thought even more. I was always thinking about hitting it back up the middle. I was really trying to hit it back up the middle.
Runner goes, throw to third, and out at third base. Reynolds out by quite a bit.
Well, Mike Bolsinger has gotten into a rhythm of coming, set, going, coming, set, going, coming, set, going, and they timed it up. But the good thing is when he went, he was quick.
And the other good thing is that Hayward didn't read him stealing, and he just stayed at first base. So now instead of, okay, you get them out at third base, but you still would have a guy in scoring position. But no, Hayward's still at first base. So
didn't we lose Justin Turner on a play like that on the tag play? But it was a feet first slide when he cut his finger. It was the night that we went through like 3 or 4 third basemen within a couple.
But you know that, you remember that play though. The difference between that play and this one, aside from him sliding head first compared to feet first, but also the other one, he had to short hop the ball the other time, and when he short hopped, his hand got a little bit stiff just to make the play, and then he had to bring it back down, and that's when he got spiked. With this one, it was in the air, and he was able to make that sweep tag.
5th time Ellis has thrown out a would-be base stealer in 9 tries. On 1 and 2 to Borges.
You know, when you've talked to the infielders now, Nomar, they've talked about the kind of the disappearance of the sweep tag because of instant replay. You used to be able to just kind of go down there and show that the glove gets down in front of the base before the runner, and I might have missed him, might not.
That's a great point.
You got to leave the glove in there now.
Because I remember talking to Justin Turner about that play. I said, did the short hopper, you know, all that have effect? He's like, a little bit, but it was more because of instant replay.
Borges down on strikes. That ends the inning. No runs, 1 hit, 1 left. We'll go to the 7th inning. Adrian Gonzalez, Justin Turner, Andre Ethier coming up. And for Bolsinger, that was his 3rd strikeout of the game. Moments of the week on and off the field. Don't miss Dodgers Clubhouse Monday night at 9:30 on Sportsnet LA. Well, the Dodgers have some work to do. Out hit 7-3, outscored 2-0 as we begin the 7th inning. Gonzalez and Turner and Ethier will bat. Through the first 32 games of the season, when the Dodgers were 22-10, they averaged 5 1/3 runs per game. Second highest run total of any team in the majors. Since the 13th of May, Dodgers are 6-8, and they're averaging about 2.8 runs per game. So about 2.5 runs fewer per game than they were scoring up until the 12th of May. And tonight they're struggling, held to 3 hits. Beginning the 7th, Gonzalez is lined out and struck out and lines a base hit into left center field. So Adrian Gonzalez with a leadoff single in the 7th. Turner coming up as the tying run at the plate.
Base runners haven't been a problem. 5 out of 7 innings have gotten a run on. Adrian Gonzalez just jumps right on this little two-seamer away. Smooth and easy.
Isn't that fun to watch?
It's so fun. When the parts are not out of order, it's just pretty.
Yeah, you were talking earlier, Oral, about how this is one of the elite players in the game, one of 12 active players with more than 1,000 runs batted in. And you would think he would garner more attention than he does. And here's a ground ball up the middle into center field for a base hit. The Dodgers are in business now. Back-to-back singles by Gonzalez and Turner beginning the 7th.
And to continue on that, Charlie, Adrian Gonzalez is only 32 years old. Justin Turner, fortunate for the Dodgers and himself to find a hole right here. Not quite as pretty a swing as Adrian's was.
He was out in front just a little bit, his timing off just a hair, but at the same time, remember I talked about that late kick earlier, but still being balanced, not drifting. He was still balanced, which allowed him to have enough to get that ball back up the middle. Like going back talking about Adrian, yeah, you know, you don't see him, magazines, all that stuff, but I don't think he really cares. He just goes about his business. He doesn't mind. He's like, listen, I got a job to do. That's all I care about. He's as professional as they come.
You looked at Seth Maness warming up in the Cardinal bullpen. Lackey in his first bit of trouble all night. Ethier's 0 for 2. He's flied to center and flied to left. Tying runs are aboard in the top half of the 7th inning. Ethier takes low, 1 ball, no strikes.
Well, Lackey wanted that pitch, wanted that call. He's hoping that breaking ball hit the bottom of the zone. For Ethier right now, he's got to look in his strength right now. He's swinging the bat well in the inner half. Look for that ball in the inner half if he's willing to make that mistake and then drive it.
Ethier in his 10th season with the Dodgers, the senior citizen in point of service, and having his best year in the last 4 or 5. Getting a chance to play every day, and he has played very well. Here's the 1-1. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
And that was the pitch I was just talking about. You know, the pitch before, they went on the outer half. They know they don't want to get on the inner half for him. And watch this ball kind of go over the middle of the plate. See where Yadier had to reach out. That was the mistake I was talking about. And as a hitter, you know it. You know what they're trying to do. You know they're going to go away. And you get your pitch and you foul it off. Now you're going, okay, now I've found myself behind in the count. Now I just have to battle.
250 with runners in scoring position is Ethier. Alex Guerrero on deck. Maness warming for the Cardinals. And the 1-2. Two and 2. J.P. Howell continues to warm in the Dodger bullpen as Molina and Lackey have a conversation.
Remember when we talked about at the beginning of this ball game where the Dodgers, you know, what they were doing, runners in scoring position, especially the last 14 games, have struggled. We talked about, well, gosh, when they have a guy in scoring position or an opportunity, when you have the pitcher on the ropes, they really need to get something going and capitalize on it. Well, here it is, right there waiting for them.
Gonzalez at second. Turner at first. Ethier takes call strike 3, and he is furious.
Well, there's two things that make you furious as a hitter, especially as Ethier watched this ball all the way in to the catcher. Was one, how low it was, but two, because it wasn't in the spot, watch the auditor have to reach for that. So those are the things you see. You see as a hitter, you see the catcher kind of reach for that rather than standing there and just hitting the spot. So you're going, that's a ball, and you're truly upset at that, even though Pitch Tracks had it at the bottom of the zone.
Ethier thrown out of the game, and now Mattingly's going to get his money's worth. Mike Winters, the crew chief in his 27th season.
You remember when the guys are watching from the bench, not only under Ethier, but the guys on the bench, the appearance of the strike was not there because of that reach. And they don't see. I think if it's Ethier that got tossed, it's an accumulation of Mike Winters being chirped at an awful lot. From A.J. Ellis at the beginning of the game to a little bit from the bench throughout the game.
I don't know if Ethier was tossed or if Don Mattingly was tossed, because Don Mattingly might have come out and said, I'm going to get my money's worth then if you're tossing me. Let's see.
Well, Ethier remains in the dugout.
Yeah, Donnie got tossed.
It was Mattingly who was, I can't say asked to leave.
Well, it was good Donnie got in between it.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was barking at a very high level to keep Andre in there. So that.
Well, you know, I mean, this is a big moment in this game. We recognize it. We talk about it. Here's a big inning. You finally have a chance to get to Lackey, who's been pitching very well against you. You recognize what you guys have been doing the last 14 games with runners in scoring position. Ethier feels that. So, Don, that's where the frustration, not only on the call, but all that's building up on you as a competitor. And he jumps out there to try to protect his team. I mean, his player.
Guerrero gets underneath it. And Carpenter's got plenty of room.
He just missed that one.
And the frustration. Oh, he knew it. Uh-oh. Did he look like he grabbed his hamstring a little bit there, Oral?
Yeah.
His leg? Like, oh.
Left upper hamstring.
So now 2 out. Looks like he's all right. A.J. Ellis has struck out twice tonight. Takes a breaking ball for a strike, 0-1.
I'm just thinking right now, I mean, I know that frustration Alex Guerrero feels right now. I mean, if I'm right now in my head, I go, gosh, I remember not me, I'm going down there. That helmet was done. I'm destroying that helmet. I am breaking something down in the dugout, the bat, the helmet, something's going to break.
Ellis falls behind, 0-2. This inning is kind of symbolic of the way things have gone for the last couple of weeks for the Dodgers. Get the first 2 runners aboard. It's a close game. Tim Wallach now running the ship for the Dodgers. Ethier takes a call, 3rd strike. Guerrero sees a pitch. Thought he should have hit out. Ellis strikes out, and there goes the rally. No runs, 2 hits, 2 left. 7th inning stretch. The Dodgers trail 2-0. as J.P. Howell is about to make his 17th appearance of the season. He has struck out 7, walked 3, 1 run, 13 hits in 11 2/3. And hitters are batting .277 against him. But don't pin the rap on Mike Bolsinger, as Ed Easley is coming up to pinch hit for John Lackey. Bolsinger, there's Lackey's numbers first. No runs and 5 hits in 7 innings. He can win it, can't lose it. 9 strikeouts, 1 walk. Got out of a first and second, nobody out jam in the 7th. And got Ethier, Guerrero, and Ellis, and that was that. Easley takes outside, 1 ball and no strikes. So John Lackey still got it, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. Easley is a catcher on this team, and the Cardinals carry 3 catchers. I was wondering when I saw a catcher coming up there to pinch hit. With A.J. Ellis's batting average below 200, Don Mattingly and Tim Wallach deciding not to hit for A.J.
Well, Grandal, of course, is on the DL, and he'll come back tomorrow. And all they have at the moment is a backup is Austin Barnes. Dodgers bench players tonight: Callaspo, Kike Hernandez, Chris Heisey, Austin Barnes, and Scott Van Slyke. And that's Juan Nicasio and Paco Rodriguez on the bike. Easley on 2-2. 3 balls and 2 strikes. Brazen Giants just underway in San Francisco. Easley with a chopper to third, and that one ate up Justin Turner. A ton of topspin, an error for Turner, and the Cardinals have a leadoff runner aboard.
Well, we had one before where he came in the charge and he was able to throw those hands out and take away that short hop. We talk about this one where you stay back and then you get that one in between hop. You can't have a chance to throw your hands at it, and that in betweener just kind of eats him up a little bit and unable to come up with it. And look at the Morongo slow-mo cam. And, this as an infielder, you're frustrated. You're like, no, you got to make the play. You got to shake it off and say, another one hit at me. Got to make the play and see if we can get the double play.
Now Wong squares to bunt and takes it back. 1 ball and no strikes. So Turner's playing in on the grass at third base. For the Dodgers, that was but their 21st error of the year. They ranked 3rd best defensively in the National League. Last year they were 14th. Long bunt. No, he's going to swing away, and he takes a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike. Interesting piece of strategy from Mike Matheny. His team is up 2. At least flirting with the notion of a sacrifice here, or was that just a decoy, that very first pitch?
You do have guys that will go up there saying, I am going to swing, but I'm going to show bunt to affect the defense, and the defense has definitely been affected. Justin Turner up for the bunt, but now even more aggressive, looking for the bunt way in on the grass. And he's trying to cover 2 things at once. He's not covering the bunt completely because of the angle he's taken that far off the line, but he's also covering the hole.
To short. Wong's a very fast runner. There's one. And the speed kills the hopes of the double play. Almost any other runner, it's a routine double play ball.
Well, there's the ground ball they were looking for, and it wasn't sharply hit. So as an infielder, you're thinking about it. You recognize it's a left-hander with speed, and this ball isn't scalded at you because that's the one that you'll get a double play. So you're thinking, okay, let me just field it cleanly and at least make the first out at second. Let's get the lead runner rather than force it.
And never once did Wong look at the play. He was looking straight ahead at the bag. Carpenter 1 for 2 and a walk. This will be Hal's only inning for sure, as the pitcher's spot is due to lead off for the Dodgers in the 8th. Long has stolen 3 out of 7, and A.J. Ellis has thrown out 5 of 9. And Hal generally has a pretty good move to first. Missing outside. J.P. Howell on in relief of Mike Bolsinger. That's how it's done. Matt Carpenter is the only left-handed hitter to ever have a 3-hit game against Clayton Kershaw. Last year at Dodger Stadium. Oh, they got him picked off. Wong speed too much. And now Gonzalez immediately talking to the dugout. We should get a replay on that. Tim Wallach looking in at the Dodger dugout on the phone with John Pratt.
Well, Wong taking off on the first move here. J.P. Howell able to get it over there. And Adrian Gonzalez knows it's a speedy runner. I have to get rid of it quickly.
I think. See if they comes off the bag here.
Yep, that's what Jimmy Rollins is thinking, that he came off. There it is.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't know if he had the
Jimmy's got the best look.
Yeah, and I wonder if he still had the glove on it. If he still had the glove on his foot when he came off.
Almost would take an overhead view like where Jimmy Rollins' head is, because he can see the air right there if the foot comes off the bag.
It appeared as if Wong beat the tag, but the question is, did his foot come off the bag?
Right there is where Jimmy's thinking, right there when he came off and slid over the bag that with his foot.
Well, this will be a good look.
So he beat the initial tag.
Just wondering if he had his glove on him when he came off.
Now we need the other angle to see if Jimmy's glove stays on him the whole time, because it looked like Wong's foot comes off for a hair, but does Jimmy's glove come off of him at the same exact time?
From here, and of course we don't get a vote on it, it looks like the call will stand. Watch the left foot.
Hands off.
Looks like he got his foot back.
It looks like the glove comes off and the foot comes off, and then they both go back on and the foot gets back in there.
Marty Foster, the second base umpire, made the call. He's on the headphones along with the crew chief Mike Winters to the folks back in New York. It's not just one guy back in New York that's watching the video. There are several fellows there who are watching games, and then It's like a firehouse. Hey, fellas, we got a call, and then they will gather around the monitor. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And more times than not, that's what has caused these replay calls to last more than 90 seconds.
Is there like a red phone there that rings there?
The bat phone?
Yeah, exactly. Come here, fellas. What do you think?
It's ringing.
You get it.
It's the Finn. And he is safe. So Wong is now at second base. And so Carpenter, who has been nothing but a nuisance to the Dodgers ever since he came to the big leagues, has a runner in scoring position. He's hitting .440 this year with runners in scoring position. So this is a huge run and runner here in the 7th inning with the Cardinals up 2-0. And now Howell falls behind 3-0. Carpenter works himself so hard to the point of exhaustion. They gave him 3 days off the other day because he had worked so hard. He was dehydrated. He had lost weight. They said, just sit down for a while. But his work ethic is unquestioned. And he's another one of these fellas who does not need no stinking batting gloves. He's a tough hombre. And he works out a walk, first and second, 1 out. And Tim Wallach is going to make a double switch here.
I think A.J. Ellis just got thrown out of the game.
Chris Heisey is going out to left field. Ellis has had trouble with home plate umpire Mike Winters all night. Don Mattingly was thrown out of the game, arguing with Mike Winters.
Like, does that change your whole double switch then? Say, well, if you just toss my catcher, maybe I don't have to take out the left fielder. Then I can just do it because Ellis made the last out.
Well, Wally's face shows some frustration and disgust. And while all that happens, we're going to take a break. 2 on, 1 out, bottom of the 7th. Cardinals 2-0.
And This could have ended up being a triple switch, Charlie, the way it went down with A.J. Ellis getting booted from the game.
So 2 ejections tonight, the manager and the catcher. Austin Barnes is now behind the plate. Chris Heisey takes over in left. And Nicasio now on in relief.
If Heisey wouldn't have crossed over the foul line and Tim Wallach could have maybe held him up, they could have stopped it, maybe saved a player if they would have decided now that A.J. has been tossed. But it seemed like the tossing and the arrival of Tim Wallach up there with Mike Winters was almost simultaneous. And Tim had already started in motion the double switch, and Heisey had already crossed over into fair territory and was in left field.
So as we understand it, Barnes will take over for Ellis, bat 8th. Ellis made the last out of the inning. Heisey will bat 9th, lead off the 8th. And Nicasio will bat 7th in where Alex Guerrero had been. So a double switch and a half. Meanwhile, the Cardinals first and second. 1 out. Johnny Peralta. And the hard throwing Nicasio. Who has been starting clean innings. In other words, he has started an inning. Rarely does he come in a situation such as this. Going through the transition of one-time starter into a very solid reliever for the Dodgers this year. Not in communication with Howie Kendrick. So Barnes is going to go out and talk to Nicasio. Kendrick was standing at second base as Nicasio was throwing the pitch.
Yeah, Howie was looking for a pickoff there. He gave him the daylight play, which means that he gave him his hand, kind of show him the hand where you're going, all right, let's see if we can get a pickoff, see if we can sneak behind him. But Nicasio was already in his mind that he was throwing that pitch.
2-0 to Peralta, who's doubled, walked, and has been struck out. He scored a run. 2-0 Cardinals. Drilled into left, and Heisey's not going to get it, and it's going to roll to the wall. Wong has scored. Carpenter will be held at third, and the Cardinals take a 3-0 lead. The RBI for Peralta, his 26th of the year. So for Peralta, his 14th two-base hit.
Well, Peralta gets a ball in the inner half. I mean, they're looking for that pitch away. That ball goes over the middle of the plate. Peralta does a good job just throwing the barrel, bringing those hands in nicely, squaring that up and driving it to left field.
Heisey had no chance on the play. And now Randall Grichuk will be intentionally walked to face Mark Reynolds. Got a couple of things here at play. One, you have a vacant base. Two, you establish a force out, obviously. And Reynolds, while he's got a lot of power, strikes out a lot. That would be what Tim Wallach and the Dodgers are banking on here. Reynolds a hit and miss, a swing and a miss kind of guy. He's 1 for 3.
And because we have a pair in the battery that really has not worked together, and it's such a key situation in the ball game, Rick Honeycutt out there to make sure they're on the same page.
Paco Rodriguez. Now Justin Turner joins the party. And Mike Winters going to break it up. A note about Mark Reynolds. Last year in Milwaukee, in 378 at-bats, Reynolds was struck out 122 times. In 2008, 9, 10, and 11, he led the league in strikeouts. 2011, he led the American League in strikeouts. So he can be had, but he can also hit them out. Takes a strike, 0-1. So this was the move that Wallach had to make. We'll see if it pays off. 0-2.
Two great fastballs low and away right there. Fell behind Peralta with two breaking balls away, gave in with a fastball that creeped over the middle, but right there made two outstanding fastballs away.
Barnes setting up outside. So the veteran Juan Nicasio going from the transition of starter into reliever, and statistically it's worked out well for him this year. A 1.37 ERA, ahead 0-2. Well, that's exactly what Wallach was hoping for, and that's the second out of the seventh, and Yadier Molina's coming up.
Couple of fastballs away to get to 0-2, then another setup pitch, and then one right out of the same window. That little slider that looks like the fastball that has gotten called for a strike, but then breaks away from the barrel of the bat, just off the end, swing and miss.
Now 2 out, and Yadier Molina coming up. 1 for 3. Bases loaded, 2 out, 3-0. Molina has singled to right, bounced to short, and bounced to third. Carpenter, Peralta, and Grichuk are the base runners. A run in the bottom of the seventh. Now too much time being taken. Casio steps off the rubber.
Yadier called it. I thought Austin Barnes might want to call it with his pitcher out there standing like a statue on the mound with the bases loaded.
Into right. Retreating is Ethier. He's there. He's got it, and that ends the inning. Nicasio gets the job done, but not before the Cardinals tack on a big insurance run and take a 3-0 lead into the top of the eighth. Johnny Peralta, a couple of doubles, a run scored, and an RBI. Lackey was great tonight in 7 innings, 9 strikeouts and a walk. Bolsinger kept up his end of the bargain. Don't pin the rap on him. 3 runs and 8 hits for the Cardinals. No runs, 5 hits, and 1 error for the Dodgers. Hard-throwing left-hander Kevin Segrist is now on in relief after Lackey's outstanding performance, making his 23rd appearance of the year. Jordan Walden, who had been the 8th inning guy, he's sidelined with an injury, and so Segrist is at least the 8th inning fella du jour, and Trevor Rosenthal, the hard-throwing right-hander, is the Cardinals' closer. Chris Heisey leading it off, came in part of that double shift. There's a strike. 1-1. Heisey has been back and forth from Oklahoma City, 1 out of 8 at the major league level. Peterson on deck, Rollins to follow. The Dodgers trail by 3 in the 8th. There are a couple of ominous numbers. The Cardinals this year, as you look at Jock Peterson, when leading after 7, are 24-0. The Dodgers, when trailing after 7, are 1-11. And the 1-2. Call strike 3. And that is the first out of the 8th.
Velocity with location.
And now Jock Peterson coming up. Peterson tonight has struck out twice and walked once. Peterson 267 against left-handers. 262 against right-handers. So he has not been profoundly affected by left-handed pitching. Rollins on deck and Kendrick to follow. The Dodgers down to their final 5 outs.
I tell you, Segrist not only throws hard at 95, he also has some late life on that fastball as well. You know it's coming at you with high velocity, but then it seems that it's one of those that seem to pick up speed as it gets closer to you as a hitter.
Segrist was nearly an afterthought by the Cardinals, a 41st round pick in 2008. Born in Buffalo and grew up in Florida. 2-2 to Jock Peterson. The Dodgers, this is the first game of 34 games in 34 days. July 2nd is the next off day. With a lot of travel in between. Kershaw scheduled to pitch on Monday. Scott Van Slyke grew up in St. Louis. On 3-2, Peterson pops it up behind the plate. Yadier Molina. Two out, nobody on, and Jimmy Rollins coming up. There were those who questioned coming into this game, why not start Kershaw on Sunday? Obviously the question being raised based on the last 2 postseasons. But it would seem to me, and I totally defer to you on this one, Oral, that Clayton's not going to get over his postseason blues until he gets to the postseason.
I think you're right, Charlie, but in some ways you say, okay, Clayton might be asking for it, but right now the Dodgers are cherishing the off days and making sure he and Zach stay healthy throughout the whole year, since they're down to a big 2 instead of a big 3 with Ryu out. And I think that there is that decision-making process between weighing the short term and weighing the long term, and I think faulting on the side of the long term right now is the right thing. If it was up to Clayton, I'll bet you he wants the Cardinals, and he wants them today, and he wants them tomorrow, and he wants them every day.
3 balls and a strike.
But that's why you have managers and coaches, because a lot of times they have to manage and coach us from hurting ourselves.
And even if he won on Sunday, the same question would be raised as Rollins bangs a double into the left field corner.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to erase postseason doubts with a regular season win.
Right. And so it all seems to make sense. Let him start in Colorado, where, of course, he's had great success against a lesser team. So Rollins a 2-out double, and Kendrick coming up.
Just gets a fastball down the middle, and he stays on it.
And that's the thing about being a switch hitter. You just don't get as many reps as a guy that hits from one side of the plate.
Well,
in batting practice or in games.
It's funny you say that, because I talking to switch hitters. They're 2 totally different hitters. I mean, I remember in college, Jason Varitek, switch hitter, he took double the batting practice.
Yep.
Howie Kendrick takes a strike.
In some ways that can lead to fatigue, and in other ways it can come to balancing out your body, because you're doing it from 2 sides of the plate and you don't get the back issues because you're using the muscles, symmetrically.
And then there's that battle within yourself mentally. Like, I'm really feeling good on this side, but I don't feel so good on the other.
Right. Yep.
And then you're going, gosh, I feel really good from the right side. I hope they're throwing a lefty today, or I'm feeling good from the left side, and better be a righty. Oh no, it's
when
a
I
left
coached in Texas, Mark Teixeira, he always said it took me a while as a slow starter because I don't get as many swings as everybody in spring training from both sides. I get half as many, like you said.
1-1 to Kendrick. It's high,
and he couldn't work to get as many because you'd get hurt. His body just didn't lend itself to doing that.
Will the Giants ever lose again? 2-0. They lead the Braves in the 3rd in San Francisco.
I don't mind a good race as long as we win.
The 2-1 is a strike, 2-2.
There's a momentum on the bench, isn't there, Nomar, when there's borderline calls going against you and all of a sudden the whole team thinks it's, just wrong?
Yeah. Oh, because you're coming in and you're talking about it. You hear more than just one guy. It's different if it's just one guy complaining about it.
Rollins off and running as Kendrick fouls it off.
If you have one guy coming back like, oh, that was a horrible pitch, okay, but then you don't really hear much from the rest of the guys over the course of the game, that's one thing. But it hasn't been the case. You hear from your pitcher, your catcher gets tossed out already because of balls and strikes. Yeah, it definitely is in your head.
2-2. 2 strikeouts for Seacrest. A 2-out double by Rollins, and that's that. We go to the bottom half of the 8th. Cardinals 3-0. Southern California Kia dealers. Visit mysocalkia.com to learn more. Boy, do they drive fast in St. Louis. We go to the bottom of the 8th. Cardinals 3-0. It'll be Jason Hayward, Peter Borges, and a pinch hitter for Segrist. Juan Nicasio came in, got the Dodgers out of the jam in the 7th as the Cardinals scored a run, 1 hit, 2 walks, and an error. And the Dodgers have been held to 6 base hits tonight. Hayward leading it off. He's walked and doubled and grounded out. And he's grounded out again. Gonzalez to Nicasio cover. Follow the Dodgers all season in 2015 with MLB.com At Bat, the #1 app for live baseball. At Bat is up to the moment, at any moment, with in-game highlights, live look-ins, replay reviews, radio broadcasts, StatCast, and more. Get MLB.com At Bat for your smartphone or tablet. Now Borges, the former Angel. 0 for 3, 2 strikeouts, and he's grounded out. John Jay just off the disabled list today. Likely will start tomorrow against Frias. The undefeated Michael Wacha goes for the Redbirds. And that is Trevor Rosenthal. When he doesn't throw hard, he throws harder.
A lot of battles for the Dodgers tomorrow if this game ends up at 3-0. We're going to have Mike Winters down there at third base, so he'll be close to the third base dugout.
Rollins throws out the speedy Borges, 2 out.
So they're going to have to be disciplined enough to not be yelling at him about the strike zone again tomorrow. Just remember, the Dodgers are in the third base dugout here, just like at home. And then the hurdle of the starting pitcher, Mr. Frias, is going to have to make a hurdle over his last outing.
Well, John Jay, fresh off the disabled list, has just been announced, so he gets a warm reception. Then Wallach's going to come and get Nicasio, who did a terrific job. And now it is up to Paco Rodriguez to face the lefty with 2 out, nobody on. Here in the bottom half of the 8th, Cardinals 3-0. .70. Opponents hitting .229 against him, and he'll be facing John Jay, who had wrist issues, which he had last year. And he had some surgery. Took a while to recover. And here he is. Jay had 25 hits and 101 at-bats, but just wasn't feeling right. So they gave him some time for that wrist to get better.
Talk about a lot of moving parts as we did with Justin Turner's swing. John Jay had a lot of moving parts when he first got to the big leagues. A lot of people said, whoa, it's not going to function.
He's got the hitch in the swing. He's got a
He calmed it down now. He's got the rest of the bat on the shoulder now and just kind of lifting it off.
Yeah, that moving parts used to be his hands. It used to almost go like in a circle back there near his shoulder as he was loading or getting ready for the pitch, anticipating the pitch. Now it's just a small lift up and ready to hit.
nothing in 2.
That's that same sequencing with the leg kick where you can't drift. You've got to get your balance when you go up.
Well, yeah, now you're a lot calmer. Now, you saw his balance in the lower half. But now he's not getting caught for timing with the hands. Because before, with all the movement, he had to be good with his timing with both his legs and his hands.
He had 3 things.
Right.
The ball, the leg, and the hands.
Right. Now
he's got it down to 2, just the ball and his swing.
Right.
Second round pick 9 years ago. He's from Miami and a career .295 hitter. John Jay on 0-2. Stays alive for one more. Doesn't hit for power, but he gets on base. A career .396, correction, .359 on base percentage. Oh, and 2 from Paco Rodriguez. So this will be the 6th pitch of the at-bat. 5 strikes to this point. Looking ahead to the Dodgers in the 9th. Gonzalez, Turner, and Ethier will bat. On 0-2. Looks like John Jay hasn't been away. Next pitch will be the 7th.
Still fighting off tough pitches and fouling them off. And
the 0-2. It'll be another one.
But the guy who's been out as long as he has and then having an 8-pitch at bat right here, they're going to be the 9th. Is that going to help him tomorrow when he starts? Because he got more reps today.
Could, if you're able to see the ball a little bit, but I never judged I always felt good when I got the hit. I feel good whether I saw 9 or 10 pitches. The hit told me, I was like, all right, gave me confidence.
You barely see 9 pitches in a game.
Yeah, that's way too many. Speed the game up. Let's go.
He's just one of those Cardinal hitters. 1 through 8. They're all tough. Matt Holliday, of course, is the big offensive star, and Molina's a terrific catcher. But you look at Wong, he's a tough out. Carpenter's a tough out. Jay is a tough out. As the Dodgers discovered in the postseason each of the last 2 years. 1-2. They wear you out.
They don't give at bats away.
John Mabry, the hitting coach. The next pitch will be the 11th.
The non-Cardinals in the lineup tonight are really Richick and Reynolds. But they're not normally in there. It used to be Matt Adams and Matt Holliday.
Right there, right in the middle of the screen, John Mabry. Boy, was he a tough out. 2 balls and 2 strikes. The Cardinals, as a team, hitting .268, second highest batting average in the league. Here's a 2-2.
Or as a pitcher, when you face a batter like this that just kept fouling off pitches, pitch after pitch.
I got to a point where I didn't try to make a pitch. I just say, I'll throw it down the middle, you decide. Throw it down the middle with movement, and just you decide. Because hitting the corner, all you're doing is fouling it off, running my pitch count up.
Oh, you mean like the 13th? Turns out to be a lucky 13 for John Jay. Those are the Cardinals. First base coach Chris Maloney.
Breaking ball, it's up. Breaking ball is down, hit weakly on the ground, usually getting out. Breaking ball, it's up, that hits weakly. A lot of times finds outfield grass, and you're just glad that it didn't find something over the wall. John Jay doesn't have that kind of power, so he just fists it over the shortstop.
And here comes Colton Wong, 2 for 4, and he scored 2 of the 3 Cardinal runs tonight. Chris Hatcher is warming in the Dodger bullpen. Wong the hitter, Carpenter on deck. 2 more tough outs. Well, after the 13 pitch at bat by Jay works out the single. Colton Wong singles to right. And the ever dangerous Matt Carpenter's coming up. Tim Wallach talking with Rick Honeycutt. Do they call on the struggling Hatcher or stay with Paco? Lefty against lefty. One more hitter to be sure. Carpenter 1 for 2, 2 walks. First and second, 2 out. High and inside, 1 ball and no strikes.
John Jay at bat to set up this 2-out rally, but really what it also does is that it might get to the point where Paco Rodriguez is not available for tomorrow.
About to throw his 17th pitch. Carpenter 271 against lefties. Takes a strike. 1 ball, 1 strike, and 2 out. Bottom of the 8th. The hard throwing Trevor Rosenthal getting ready. He'd be in search of his 14th save.
The landmark for usually not bringing a pitcher back the next day is somewhere around 23 to 25 pitches.
Into right center field, but Ethier is there, and that's that. Cardinals threaten after the 13 pitch at bat. One by John Jay, and then the single by Wong. Carpenter flies to right. Last licks for the Dodgers, and they have to face Trevor Rosenthal. You need a microscope to find his ERA, 0.81. Opposing hitters hitting 185. He's struck out 25. He's walked 8. And if he gets the job done, Lackey will win his 3rd. And the Dodgers trying to avoid being shut out for the 4th time in the last 10 games. So they've got some work to do as Gonzalez leads off the 9th. Dodgers tonight have had a total of 3 runners in scoring position. Gonzalez 1 for 3, and now the count is 0-2. And the rain appears to have arrived at near the conclusion of the game. It's not like it's a surprise.
It's later than anticipated.
Yeah. And just as we're looking at it, it really has intensified. There was a game up in Colorado the other day. There were 2 out in the 9th. They tried to get it in, and they had an hour and 44-minute delay to get the final out in. That's what we're looking forward to next week, visiting Denver, 4 games in 3 days. Gonzalez is saying, hey, John Jay had his swings. A 13-pitch at-bat for pinch hitter John Jay. With 2 out, he singled to left. On 1 and 2. Just a bit outside.
Well, that one definitely slipped. Look at this. That's supposed to be a breaking ball, and as he's going to get through it, that ball just came right out of his hand.
Two and 2 to Gonzalez. Got underneath it. There's Borges. Got the windshield wipers on. That's the first down. Dodgers down to their final 2 outs. Justin Turner is 2 for 3 tonight.
Nomar, who's the hardest throwing reliever you faced?
Whew. Gosh, that's a good question. There used to be Anderson from Detroit, throw over 100 miles an hour.
You didn't face Chapman?
No, I didn't. Didn't get a chance to face him. Nope.
A chance. Didn't have the pleasure.
Then there were some guys who threw maybe 96, 98, but it looked like it was 100.
Into short right. It's a foul ball. Long, Reynolds, and Hayward couldn't quite reach it.
And then in opposite extremes, the best changeup, Trevor Hoffman in the closer role.
Him and Gagne,
yeah.
when he was locked in, that changeup was unbelievable too. So, yeah, Trevor had a great one, obviously in the closer role.
And Mariano Rivera's cutter. Optical illusion.
I think late break. I think the late break where, according to science, there's a place where you kind of stop seeing the ball as it's coming to the plate.
Mark Reynolds, 2 out.
So you might, it might be an optical illusion in a sense.
Well,
where
I
you're
didn't
thinking
mean
it's
that.
No, but you're right. But
seems
an
like
illusion where you're thinking, okay, the ball's right here, as you're swinging, and all of a sudden you're hitting it somewhere else, or you're missing it. Like, how did I miss that ball?
So the Dodgers down to their final out, in danger of being shut out for the 5th time this year and for the 4th time in the last 10 games. 0-1 to Andre Ethier, who's 0 for 3. John Lackey out pitching Mike Bolsinger tonight, but don't pin the rap on Bolsinger. Bolsinger, 2 runs. And that's going to do it. Rosenthal retires the Dodgers in order. The Dodgers have been shut out for the 5th time this year and for the 4th time in the last 10 games. Blame it on John Lackey. He's our Lexus player of the game, and what a game he tossed tonight. No runs in 5 hits in 7 innings. He struck out 9, walked 1, and the Dodgers never really had much of a rally against him. Until the 7th inning, they had 1st and 2nd, nobody out, but then he struck out 2 of the next 3 hitters that he would face in recording his 3rd win of the season. So that's a wrap for us from Busch Stadium in St. Louis. For Alana Rizzo, Oral Hershiser, Nomar Garcia-Parra, and our entire Sportsnet LA crew, Charlie Steiner, say good night and goodbye. We will see you again on Sunday. In the meantime, we send it back to Access Sportsnet Dodgers, brought to you by Nissan. See you Sunday.